In the shadowed heart of the Umbral Reach, where the sun dared not linger, the Dark Triad of Warriors knelt before the altar of the Virgin. Their citadel, carved from obsidian and bone, thrummed with the chants of their devotion. The Virgin, a divine figure of purity and wrath, demanded absolute loyalty from her warriors. 3 champions bound by blood and shadow. Among them was Kael, the blade, whose heart was a battlefield of faith and doubt. Kael's armour, black as the void, gleamed faintly under the altar's torchlight. His sword, etched with prayers to the Virgin, rested across his knees. To his left knelt Veyra, the Fang, her eyes sharp with zeal. To his right, Toren, the claw, muttered fervently, his scarred hands clasped. The Triad was unbreakable, or so the elders claimed. Yet Kael felt a fracture within himself, a whisper that the Virgin's light might not be as pure as he'd been taught. The Virgin was no mortal saint. She was a celestial enigma, said to have birthed the world's first dawn and vowed to purge its corruption. Her warriors, the Triad, were her instruments, assassins, judges, executioners. They worshipped her chastity, her refusal to be tainted by the world's filth. To Kael, raised in the citadel's cold embrace, she was mother, goddess, and purpose. But lately, her commands troubled him. The latest decree had come at dusk, delivered by the High Seer's trembling voice. A village in the lowlands, suspected of harbouring heretics, was to be cleansed. No survivors. Kael had obeyed such orders before, his blade singing through flesh and bone, but this time the seer's words carried a weight he couldn't shake. "The Virgin sees all," she'd said, "even the smallest seed of doubt." As the Triad rode out under a moonless sky, Kael's mind churned. The lowlands were poor, their people scraping life from barren soil. Heretics, or simply victims of rumour. Veyra, sensing his hesitation, hissed, "Your thoughts betray you, blade. The Virgin's will is clear." Toren, ever silent, only tightened his grip on his axe. Kael said nothing, his heart a knot of loyalty and rebellion. The village appeared at dawn, a cluster of mud huts huddled against a grey horizon. Smoke curled from a single chimney, and Kael's stomach twisted at the thought of families waking to their doom. The Triad dismounted, their presence a blight on the quiet morning. Veyra's daggers gleamed as she scouted ahead, while Toren's heavy steps crushed the frost beneath his boots. Kael lingered, his hand resting on his sword's hilt, the prayers etched there burning his palm. "Strike swiftly," Veyra commanded, her voice a blade of its own. "The Virgin's wrath is our honour." Toren grunted assent, but Kael's eyes drifted to a child's toy, a wooden horse, lying in the dirt. Doubt, that forbidden seed, took root. The first hut fell easily. Veyra's daggers found throats before screams could form, and Toren's axe cleaved through resistance. Kael moved mechanically, his blade cutting down a man who raised a pitchfork in desperation. Blood sprayed, warm against his armour, and the Virgin's prayers echoed in his mind. Purity through sacrifice. Cleanse the unworthy. But the man's eyes, wide with fear, not defiance, haunted him. In the second hut, Kael found her, a girl no older than 10, crouched in the corner, clutching a tattered doll. Her eyes, bright with tears, met his, and time slowed. The Virgin's voice, or what he'd been told was her voice, roared in his skull. "Cleanse them all," but the girl's trembling lips formed a single word, "Please." Kael's sword wavered. Veyra burst in, her daggers raised, but Kael stepped between her and the girl. "Enough," he growled, his voice low but firm. Veyra's eyes narrowed, her zeal a palpable heat. "You defy the Virgin?" she spat. Toren loomed in the doorway, his axe dripping red, his silence heavier than words. "I defy slaughter," Kael said, his heart pounding. "This isn't purity, it's murder." The words felt like treason, yet they freed something within him. The girl whimpered, and Kael's resolve hardened. "Go," he told her. "Run." She hesitated, then bolted, disappearing into the dawn. Veyra's daggers flashed, aimed at Kael's throat. He parried, their blades clashing in a shower of sparks. "Traitor!" she screamed. Toren moved to join her, but Kael saw a flicker in his eyes. Doubt, perhaps, or something deeper. The triad, forged in blood, was breaking. The fight was brutal, a dance of steel and shadow. Veyra was fast, her zeal fueling every strike, but Kael was the blade, trained to outlast any foe. He disarmed her, pinning her against the hut's wall. "Think, Veyra," he pleaded. "Is this what the Virgin wants? Blind slaughter?" Her eyes burned with rage, but she didn't answer. Toren lowered his axe, his voice a rumble. "Enough." He looked at Kael, then at the village, where screams had given way to silence. "The Virgin's will, or the Seer's?" Kael's breath caught. Toren, the Claw, was questioning too. They left the village, sparing those who remained. Veyra, bound but alive, cursed them as a traitor's fate awaited her back at the citadel. Kael didn't care. The girl's face, her whispered "please," had shattered his faith in the Virgin's purity, or at least in the Triad's version of it. As they rode into the wilderness, Kael felt the weight of his sword, its prayers now a mockery. Toren rode beside him, silent but steady. The Umbral Reach loomed behind them, a shadow they could never fully escape. Kael didn't know if the Virgin was real, or if her light was a lie woven by the elders, but he knew one truth. Salvation, if it existed, lay not in blind devotion, but in the courage to question. The road ahead was uncertain, but Kael, once the blade, now something more, rode toward it. The Virgin's wrath might follow, but so would the hope of redemption, not for her, but for himself. Redemption, not for her, but for himself.